Hello.
Hello, is this Butch Patrick?
Yes, it is.
Hey, Butch, this is Dustin Wilmes from KMSU Radio in Minnesota. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm excellent. Is this still a good time to ask you a few questions?
Okay, I've got 10 minutes, okay? I talk fast.
All right, well, I appreciate you taking the time out. I guess I'll start at the beginning and kind of ask you a little bit about how you got started in acting. I know you started pretty early on.
Yeah, I was 7 years old, and my sister was the focus of their attention. I went along for the ride, 7 years old. I guess my mom didn't have a babysitter or something. After they were done with my sister, they took a few photographs of me, and lo and behold, the gentleman who took the pictures put my picture on his window on Hollywood Boulevard, and a producer saw it, asked how to get in touch with me, and they tracked me down that way.
Well, it seems like you really were working a lot in those early years. I know you were on Bonanza and Rawhide and a lot of shows back then.
I really got out of the gate very fast. Prior to the Munsters, I did a year at General Hospital was my first interview. I also did a Kellogg's commercial, and I got a movie, my first 3 interviews. So I kind of had some credits, did a lot of early roles, a lot of guest starring roles, a lot of Westerns, and then I did a year of The Real McCoys right after General Hospital in 63, and then the Munsters came along in 64, 65, and partial 66. So in the first, I guess, 6 years of my acting, 4 of them were on series, which was pretty good.
Yeah, I want to ask you about the Munsters, and of course you played Eddie Munster. Was that just another kind of casting call, or how did that come about?
No, that was another one. I've had some unusual scenarios going on. I was actually living in the Midwest, in Illinois, with my grandma. I was back there, and I was actually going to a parochial school in the 5th grade, and they had already cast and done a pilot with another kid and another mother named Joan Marshall, and her character name was Phoebe. And for some reason, at the last minute, they reevaluated the cast, and they wanted to change the kid, and they wanted to change the mother. So they had brought in Yvonne DiCarlo, and they flew me out directly from the airport to a screen test. She and I tested together, and they never let me go back to the airport. I was working within 3 days.
Well, and I imagine a set like that and just kind of the imagery and all that must have been pretty awesome for a young kid to be immersed in.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It really was. It was entertaining as heck. I had worked at the Universal Studio a couple times. It was a huge studio, but never under the situation with the monsters and the makeup and all that kind of good stuff. That was a lot of fun.
And it kind of seemed like you guys as a cast probably got along pretty well and probably pretty cool offset as well.
Yeah, I get a lot of people asking how it was, and I said, it was pretty much an extension of what it looked like on camera. What you saw was very much an extension of the real life personalities. Well,
of course, the show is still beloved today. I imagine you probably couldn't have seen that coming. All these years later, people still talking about this show.
No, actually, back in the early '60s, syndication didn't exist, and most people the show was on, and it was rerun a few times maybe, and then it disappeared into oblivion. But for some reason, a few of the shows and syndication, the combination of the two, the quality of the new shows not being too good, syndication bringing up the old shows, and people just having fond memories of the '60s, I think.
Well, I want to ask you, the Addams Family, I know, was a big hit at the same time, and it was kind of interesting that 2 shows like that would be on at the same time, but was there ever any kind of rivalry between the shows or a feeling like maybe you were competing with each other?
No, it was great in the press. It worked well for media, and I think each show actually benefited from the other one's existence because there had never really been a somewhat of a comparison rivalry in the media about 2 different shows. So I think we both gained from the other one's existence, really.
Well, and I know you were in a lot of other shows other than the Munsters, of course. Eventually, you left acting, though. Was it just a time to move on, or what was your reasoning behind that?
I was never an actor. I was just a kid who could act. It wasn't a calling. It came easy to me, and I actually wanted to be a race car driver, so I thought the money I was making would come in handy someday. And then in '71, I was in the last year of the lottery, so I thought I was going to Vietnam. I had a very low number, and I went to the induction center, and I found out that I had a little bit of a problem with a knee that I had hurt while I was snow skiing, and they didn't find me to be, forced. I was classified 1H, which would be not like 4F, but 1H was kind of in a limbo situation. So I never wound up going to Vietnam and wound up spending all my money and never got my race car. But I never really wanted to be an actor. It was just something that came, it was like a hobby. It was fun.
Yeah, I suppose a lot of people out there would think, somebody would be crazy to give up that kind of Hollywood lifestyle. But like you said, it was just kind of a fluke thing, no babysitter, and you just wind up with your sister and then you're in it for good.
Yeah, it was interesting, and I think actually that helped with my, I never took an acting class. It was just something that I portrayed myself, and I could take direction well. So if the way I was interpreting the part wasn't the way they wanted it, then they would tell me how they wanted it. And luckily for me, I could adjust it accordingly. So I took direction well. I knew I could memorize lines. I was small for my age, but mentally older than I looked, and actually mentally older than my physical age, and everything worked out really well.
So, of course, I have to ask, as a race car enthusiast, did you wind up with any of those cars, like the Dragula or any of that stuff from the show?
I have a Dragula and a Munster coach right now that I've been touring the country, replica cars that this gentleman made. I've been touring the country since February, doing car shows, car racetracks, drag strips, you name it. I've been doing every weekend for the last 9 months. I've been busy, and midweek as well.
Yeah, that is awesome for sure. And I know a lot of people, as I mentioned, grew up on that show and still talking about it. One thing I want to ask you, though, is your music career, and I think that is pretty cool as well. How did that come about?
After I did the show Lidsville, you go to Greg's. After I did the show Lidsville, the people who were at Metro Media Records wanted to create another teeny bop star like Bobby Sherman. They let Bobby Sherman go. So my mom, who was working at my agency at the time, was working at Mary Gray Agency, convinced the guys that they should hire me. So anyway, they wanted to do a Bobby Sherman deal, and my mom convinced them that they should work with me, and they had a group called Sugarloaf. Sugarloaf was my backup band, and we did American Bandstand, and we did this and we did that, and it turned out to be a pretty good gig. But we really didn't sell enough records to make any money. Yeah,
that is definitely interesting. Sugarloaf actually was your backup band. I didn't know that.
Studio band, yeah. They were, but they had huge hits with Green Eyed Lady and Don't Call Us, We'll Call You.
And I know you also put out the Eddie and the Munsters 45 there, and did some other stuff. That was an interesting time back then as well. A lot of TV shows kind of spun out, and they had their own albums and all that sort of thing. I don't know that could ever take place again now.
No, I didn't. I did the Monkees Christmas show when I was 14 years old. It was a huge week for me, and when Eddie and the Monsters came out in 1983, we were the first unsigned act ever to be on MTV, And it was really cool because I had written the lyrics for the Munsters theme, and we wanted to do rock videos. So that was kind of a feather in our cap to bullshit our way up the tower at the New York City MTV Tower and air on Super Bowl Sunday, the first unsigned act ever. So they formed the Basement Tapes from that idea, and I like to think we helped some people, achieve some stardom, hopefully.
Yeah, very cool for sure. And I know you mentioned traveling around the country and making a lot of appearances. Do you have anything else coming up, or maybe anything else you're working on that you want to mention?
Yeah, I have a company called Scare It Forward, which is we make public domain horror movies, and we give them away on Roku and the Scare It Forward channel. I just bought my grandma's old house in the Midwest, not the one I lived in at the Munsters, but the one I visited right after the Munsters in Macon, Missouri. I purchased it. It's haunted, and we're going to do some mixers and this and that, so it's going to be cool. Oh, and another thing, Munsters.com. People can follow my travels and my schedule on Munsters.com and go to scareitforward.org to see what we're up to with the other thing.
Excellent. Again, Butch, I know you're a busy guy. I appreciate you taking some time out with me today.
Okay, bye. Thanks.